on average, just in the United States, about 220 people die every single day from an opiate overdose. By the time we finish this show, 8 to 10 people are going to die from an opiate overdose. If we get even one person, one viewer with this program that we might be able to help with some of the information that's shared on here, then it's all worth it. Hey everyone, welcome to the Dare Me podcast. It's your old pal Glenn Victor. Peace. And thank you for joining our show tonight. It's been a minute. We haven't been actually live for 3 weeks because of various things. Of course, we had the Super Bowl going on last Sunday at the usual time we're live. And yours truly, of course, wanted to watch the game, and everybody else around the country watching the game too. We just figured, hey, we'll play a previously recorded show, which we did. It was an interesting episode that I did last summer when I was in Las Vegas. And being that the Super Bowl was in Las Vegas, we thought we'd rebroadcast that one. And the week before, we planned on going live, but we had a really bad storm here in Sacramento, where I'm coming to you live from, by the way, and had a power outage. There was this atmospheric river storm that was moving through the area. You probably saw on the news some of the bad flooding all up and down, mainly in Southern California. I'm, of course, in Northern California. We had some flooding here too, though, but had a power outage that night, right before we were about to go live on the show. So we ended up rebroadcasting a previous episode that week as well. And then the week before that was the big NFC championship game with the Detroit Lions and San Francisco 49ers. And that game was going on right at the usual time we have the Dare Me podcast on. So anyway, it's been a few weeks since we've actually been live and doing a what we would call like a regular edition or show of the Dare Me podcast. And we're back tonight and glad to be here with you. And we're going to bring in our co-host and producer right now, live from the East Coast, all the way over in Orlando, Florida. There he is, our old pal, Dean Baker. What's happening, Dean?
Hey there, Glenn. How is it going?
It's going good. Well, hey, I had no idea, bro. You were so busy today. You and I were talking just before we went live tonight on the air here that this is not your first or second podcast today, but your third podcast of the day. So you've been a busy man all day, eh?
Today has been a little crazy. Yes, I have been. I started about 8 o'clock this morning, and yeah, I've had a couple hours between this show, and I got home about, I don't know, close to 7 o'clock. So I've been running and gunning all day. So
well,
yeah.
Yeah, well, hey, let's talk about that just a little bit. And we're
heavily caffeinated here, too.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm right there with you. I had coffee earlier, but I'm drinking my Coke Zero. So, yeah, trying to stay caffeinated. But, talking about you doing 2 podcasts before this one today, I thought it's the perfect opportunity to bring this photo up and talk a little bit about PFX Media and what you're doing there in Orlando, Dean. I just think it's awesome, man. And of course, this is a picture of you and I when I was visiting Orlando at your podcast studios there in West Orange County. And for those that live in the Central Florida area, you already know, but we have viewers and listeners to this podcast all around the United States and other parts of the world too. So I should elaborate a little bit. Again, Dean is coming to us live from Orlando, Florida, where I used to live. I live here in Sacramento, California now. I've been here for about a year and a half, but I lived in Orlando for 30 years. And Dean and I worked together on a lot of projects. We were colleagues and, of course, great friends. And Dean has this podcast studio in West Orange County that's actually located right in what's called the West Oaks Mall. And we've talked about it on this show, as you know, Dean, that the face of the shopping mall in the U.S. has changed quite a bit. And there's a variety of different businesses and things to that nature in shopping malls now. And so you can see Dean and I there at his podcast studio. So I just thought we'd put in a little plug for you there, Dean. I feel like I'm doing all the talking for you here, but I just think it's awesome, man. You offer such a great service, and you and I have worked on, like I just said, many, many projects over the years having to do with TV, film, videos, TV shows. Dean and I used to do a television show in Orlando called A Taste of Central Florida, which was prior to the Food Network being so huge, where we did a culinary tour of the biggest tourist destination in the world right there in Orlando, Florida. And we used to go visit all them restaurants. And that's how Dean and I actually met way back when. And we did that show for 7 years. And now Dean has this awesome studio there. So, anyway, if you need any TV, film, podcasting, anything having to do with webcasting for conferences, conventions, things to that nature. PFX Media and Dean are your folks you want to work with. So, Dean, anything you want to add to that plug I just gave for you and your business there?
Yeah, no, things you said, yes, the face of shopping malls have changed, or at least in Florida. I can tell you how many malls are having, getting their, I don't know if their second win, their third win,
Yeah,
but shopping, I would not in my life want to open up retail in a mall.
right.
It's just I look at the mall that I'm in, and there's so little foot traffic. I'm perplexed why clothing stores and shoe stores and are still opening up, and
Yeah.
it just boggles the mind. And then I was talking to one of my neighbors the other day, and he's looking at me going, I don't know what's going on, and I'm like, well, dude, you have retail, so if you can't figure out how to bring them in. It used to be
Yeah.
the Florida Mall. I used to do a lot of work down at the Florida Mall, which is
Right.
it's a tourist destination shopping mall. So they didn't really get hit hard
Hmm.
because for some reason tourists go to that particular mall. So they're always busy. And I'm looking at it, and I went down there. Of course, their retail, their rent, everything is, 100%. Like they never skipped a beat. But
Right.
I'm
Right.
looking at that. But then I remember back in the '90s when I used to do filming out there. I used to do TV commercials out at the mall, and the mall was requiring everybody to do advertising. The
Mm.
Florida Mall was required. They required all their tenants, all those stores to do some form of advertising,
Right.
spend some kind of money. And I'm going, and I go to my neighbor and I go, well, look, how much do you spend on advertising? He goes, nothing. I'm like, well, that's part of the battle right there. You're not advertising. And, we advertise. We do these shorts that come
Yeah.
out through the week, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's our advertising. That gets more attention, gets more people looking. Hopefully, it gets them into the seriousness about what we're doing here with
Well,
this epidemic,
we're going to talk
and
about that actually.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's what we do, and
Yeah.
although I don't spend money advertising, I spend a lot of time doing those shorts
Yeah.
and trying to bring new
Promotions.
eyeballs and promote
Yeah.
the show, and more so not really the show. The show is always promoting itself, but
Right.
but
Right.
the again, the importance of what's going on with fentanyl and the epidemic and all that,
Yeah.
young people dying and old people, everybody's dying
Oh
over
man, we're
this
going to
thing.
be talking about that. Yeah. Well, I appreciate all that, Dean. And yeah, man, the face of the shopping mall has absolutely changed. And you're right. It's almost like it's going full circle. Right here in the area where I live. I live in a city called Citrus Heights, which is a suburb of Sacramento. and there's this old shopping mall. I say old, probably about 30 years old, but it's this huge mall that's actually beautiful called the Sunrise Mall. And
Mm-hmm.
it used to be like the spot, everybody tells me, oh God, man, that used to be the main mall, and it's still got a couple anchor stores. It's got a Macy's and a Penny's, but you go in there and it's almost like a ghost town. All these different, storefronts are empty. And now some developer has apparently, bought this thing and invested, and they're going to, remodel the whole thing, and they're going to be building condos and,
Yeah. Yeah.
revamping the thing. It's going to be like this new buzz phrase where you can live, work, and play all in one spot. Now, there's a
Right.
couple other malls around here that are still thriving. There's one called the Galleria in this city right up the road from me, Roseville, and then there's one closer to downtown called the Yarden Mall, and they're still thriving, man, like big
Yeah.
time, But it's weird that this one right near me is just like almost like a ghost town when you go in there,
All
So
that, all the property that exists around a typical shopping mall, the parking, first of all,
yeah, yeah,
the people aren't going in droves to the mall, so there's all
yeah,
that parking lot that can house thousands and
yeah.
thousands of cars. So you're right. In fact, the mall that I'm in,
Hmm.
I saw some plans prior to the pandemic, and the
Right.
plans were to bring in a couple of hotels right in
Wow.
the
Yeah.
area,
Yep. Yep.
and I think condos or apartments were part of that thing,
Yeah.
and of course the pandemic put a whole bunch of halt to that, and
Yeah.
too little, too late. But they were struggling. They're still everybody's struggling, and
Yeah.
even remember how I had Auntie Annie's pretzels right about
Yeah.
2 doors away from me? They closed last week,
Oh
dude. They
man.
closed.
Yeah, that
They
sucks.
shut down. Something about, they couldn't get over the hump from the pandemic where
Yeah.
they couldn't pay their rent or something. I don't know. I don't
Well,
want to,
but you still
but
got some great restaurants there in the food
oh
court.
yeah.
Last
Oh
time I
yeah.
was there, man, we had a
Yeah.
feast from that one restaurant there,
Just I'm out. I can't do pretzels anymore. I'm so sad. In fact,
Yeah.
the day before they closed, I went to them and got one of those hot dog pretzels, and I go, yeah, great, awesome. They even we're doing a 2 for 1. I didn't realize the 2 for 1 was a going out of business sale. So,
Yeah.
they're
Wow.
closed. The very next day I had a hot dog. I'm like, is there
Yeah.
nothing I can do to keep you guys open? But no,
Well,
they
it
seem like they're gone.
Yeah, it goes to show, like what we were saying, that the face of the mall is changing. There's a lot
Yeah.
of different types of businesses. Like, for example, I remember last time I was in the area there at the Fashion Square, they had a tattoo shop where you go
Yeah.
get tattoos. Back in the day,
Why
you
not?
would never think about having a tattoo parlor in a shopping mall. And then even where you're at, you've got the DMV offices in the
Right.
shopping mall. So whatever it takes to bring people there. And of
Well,
course, as we know, Amazon has had a big impact on it.
yeah.
People just don't like going out as
Oh, now
much,
we got Timu.
even with
T-
traffic and all
Now
that.
we got Timu, the biggest contender on the marketplace. Timu is a new shopping thing, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just
I
ordered
saw
from
that
them. Yeah,
ad during the Super
yeah,
Bowl. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But like even where you're at, you've got a radio station in the storefront right across from your
I'm
studio, which I
sandwiched
thought was
between
interesting.
2 art galleries, a radio
Yeah.
station. Down the hall, a batting clinic just opened up for probably for Little League
Wow,
baseball.
like a batting cage. How cool
Yeah,
is that?
there's
Yeah, so see,
inside a mall store.
shopping malls just
So
going through some type of like evolution,
yeah,
because people do still, I think, like to go out and do things, but the days of people wanting to go to the mall to shop for overpriced things, I think, are gone because of a variety of reasons.
well,
Amazon, things to that nature, not to mention inflation, man. The
we
economy.
still have a J.C. Penney and a Dillard's, which are the
Yeah,
anchor stores, and
right.
I don't see them surviving. So those are two
Yeah.
massive stores,
Mm.
and I think they're both
You just
outlets now.
wonder how they can. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, hey, Dean, I want to take a moment to send a shout out. I see we have quite a few people already
All
in the
right.
viewing room tonight. So welcome and thanks for tuning in, y'all. We are live right now. First time we've been live in 3 weeks because of the reasons we explained earlier. We had the Super Bowl, we had had a power outage. It was a big NFC championship game, but we are coming to you live right now on several different YouTube channels, half dozen Facebook pages we're on right now. We're on live on LinkedIn. We're live on X, which of course used to be Twitter. We're live on Threads. You get the idea. All the things. We are live right now. We can see, we've got a variety of people in the viewing room from all the different platforms. We also want to remind everyone we have a live chat room, and you are more than welcome to chime in on the show if you might like to in the chat room. And Dean, if you want, you throughout the show tonight, whenever you might feel inclined, we'll flash that telephone number on the screen too. We can take live calls from you. There it is, scrolling across the bottom of the screen. And we always like to take just a little time on the front end of the show to give people a chance to jump on board. Because as Dean mentioned, we put out promos throughout the week, and I try to put them out, on the day of the show, promoting that will be live and stuff. So, of course, we also want to send a shout out to all of our viewers and listeners who come across the recorded version of the podcast, which, of course, is where we get most of our views and listeners. We love getting people on live, but we get most of our stuff from the recorded version of the show. So shout out to all of y'all, too. And I want to take just a little bit of time right now to talk about the purpose of our podcast, the Dare Me podcast. What does that name, Dare Me, even mean? Well, this is episode 49 of the podcast. Believe it or not, I can hardly believe it, man. We're coming up on that golden number 50 next week. Next week will be a good show, by the way. I put a little work into putting that one together for our special 50th edition. But there's those hashtags across the top of the screen Dean just put up for us, y'all. And those are all taken from the name Dare Me, which is the name of the podcast, but also an acronym for all those little hashtags. This program is all about drugs, addiction, recovery, enlightenment, music, and exercise. That's a lot of different topics, but believe it or not, we usually touch on all of them on every edition of the show. This show truly has kind of sort of taken on a life of its own. The name Dare Me came from me basically saying, dare me to come out and be open and honest and recover out loud, if you will, that catchphrase, that buzz phrase, pardon the pun, that's out there right now about people being open and honest about addiction and substance abuse disorder. And that's the main focus of this podcast. Dean touched on it a little bit earlier when we were just chatting about how we put all these reels and promos out all the time, promoting, marketing the podcast and what it's all about. Fentanyl, this epidemic with fentanyl that's out there right now. Oh my God, here in the Sacramento area, man, we just lost somebody in our recovery community this past week to fentanyl. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on the show next week. Didn't have a lot of prep done for this particular edition of the show. That's all on me, but I did do some prep, but just been really busy with a lot of other stuff. And we're going to talk a little bit tonight about the future of this podcast. But anyway, that's the purpose of the show, y'all, to talk about those things. And my story, I've told on this podcast many, 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 many times. And I always like to promote that Dare Me podcast YouTube channel. I talked about all the platforms we're on, and we are on all those platforms live, coming to you right now live. And also all the, recorded versions are on those platforms. But on that Dare Me podcast YouTube channel, I oversee that one. So I try to keep it pretty organized. You go there, you click on the videos tab, and all the episodes are there. I'm behind a couple right now, but they're all in chronological order, all cleaned up, all edited, so you don't see us talking before the show starts and the timer and all that other stuff. And the reason I go into that is if you go back and look through any number of those previous 48 episodes, you'll hear me tell my story in detail, y'all. I've had a long history of struggling with drug addiction going back to when I was a kid, and I got clean for the first time just shy of 25 years old. I got involved in 12-step programs, run into rehab, all that other stuff. And I stayed clean for a long time, almost 17 years. Yeah, man, that's where I built my life, went back to school, graduated, got a degree, a couple of careers, and moved from the Midwest to Florida, which is the dream of a lot of people who live in the cold winters of the Midwest, is living in Florida in a warm climate. I went down there, thought I'd try it for a year, see how it went. I ended up staying 30 years. My God. And I do consider Florida to be my second home. Live out here in California now. Moved out to Sacramento about a year and a half ago to be near my beautiful daughter Alyssa and her husband Cam, and I just love it out here. I've found there's a saying about Northern California that when you move out here, it kind of grows on you, and before you know it, you fall in love and you're hooked for life. And that certainly has become the case for me. I love it here. Not a big fan of the winter weather, to be honest. Yesterday was a very gloomy, cold, wet, rainy day. The winters aren't that great, but they don't last as long as they do in the Midwest. That's for sure. Spring and summertime and the fall is beautiful here. It's usually crystal clear blue skies almost every single day, all spring, summer, and fall, but the winter, not so great. Anyhow, though, I'm kind of getting off topic there. The point I was getting at, y'all, is yeah, I've been struggling with addiction and recovery for most of my life. Like I said, I was very involved with recovery, NAAA, Buck and A, as I jokingly say sometimes, 12-step programs for all those 17 years. And I had a horrible relapse for reasons I won't go into tonight. Got complacent, we'll just say. And I relapsed for 5 years, ended up back in rehab. Oh my God, how humiliating that was to me. Even now, just talking about it, devastating to me that I ended up back in a rehab in a treatment center. But that was a good trip for me. I came out and stayed clean for another 6 years. And then I relapsed again. I broke my ankle and got hooked on opioid pain medication they prescribed for me when I broke my ankle. Never should have taken that shit. I knew better, but I did. I started taking it and I got hooked. Oh man, that shit works good until it doesn't anymore. And so, anyway, yeah, y'all, I went on a 9-year run. I was one of those functioning drug addicts. I truly was. I went to work every day, and and then it became like this vicious circle. Though you work more and more and more and more and more, so you get more money, so you can buy more dope, so you can go back to work and get more money and get more money, so and you got to do more dope, so you can go back to work and you get the idea. And then the COVID pandemic hit, man, and everybody was locked down at home and isolating for that 1 year. And oh man, that's when it really got bad for me because all I ever left the house for was to go get more dope, and it got bad. So eventually I kicked, and I'm grateful to tell y'all that the good Lord willing, on March 11th, I will have not one, not two, but 3 years clean again. Oh my God. Thank God, man, because I tried kicking for a long time before I was able to get clean this time. I did. I tried for really, I was trying for a couple of years and I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it for some reason. And, there's a long story about how I finally was able to kick. I had to get out of my own backyard. I went back home, as it were, to the Midwest, and I ended up staying there for like 4 months, man. And for the most part, kicked in the rooms. I didn't want to go back into treatment. Kind of stayed in bed with a family member there for about a week, just going through the withdrawals, which was literally the worst thing I'd ever been through in my life. Went through all the horrible withdrawal symptoms you hear about, and then I start hitting meetings, man, and just going to meetings, and there's that saying that when you go to meetings, it's not like they sprinkle pixie dust all over you, as I've often said on this podcast, and then everything's okay. God, I wish it was that easy. No, man, you really, really got to dig deep and you got to want it, and I did. I wanted it, man, and I went through hell, but now I feel great, man. I feel the best I have really in my whole life, go through a lot of mental shit sometimes because they say, man, that substance abuse disorder, if we like to flower it up, that's kind of the catchphrase now. That addiction is the horrible word, the stigma of addiction. That's part of the reason we do this podcast. Try to reduce this stigma. Oh God, an addict, drug addiction, Dare Me is where I came up with that name, man. Dare me to come out and talk about drugs and addiction and drug addiction, and because there is this stigma, this new phrase that's kind of been popular the last year or so that I've picked up on is people have substance abuse disorder. Well, that's fine. You want to call it that? That's fine with me. Yeah, I got substance abuse disorder. For me, it's like it's addiction, man. I'm a fucking addict. I don't know when, where, or how it happened, but at some point in time, you cross that line. And for those of us that are real ones, you cross that line and there's no more going back to socially using, whether it's, doing pills, drugs, smoking weed, drinking, whatever. Pick it. Mind or mood altering substances. It's all drugs to me, you know. And once you cross that line, there's no going back to using socially. It's either you get loaded to some degree, whatever it is, on a daily basis, or none at all. And for those of us that are real ones, sometimes it's a struggle understanding that not everybody's an addict. Some people can use socially, go out and have a cocktail on the weekend or after work, or just have a beer, which I never understood. Why on earth would anybody want to have just one fucking beer? No, man, for me, and I never really even was that way. Even from being a young kid, it was like once I start, man, I just kind of go till the wheels fall off. I never understood this whole drink like a gentleman thing. It's all a crock of shit in my mind, anyways. That's me. If you can do it and that makes you happy, and you're able to drink or party or smoke socially or whatever, and it doesn't cause problems, and you're happy with it, hey, do you, boo? Yeah, I got lots of friends that like to party, that I can be around. It doesn't bother me, I always just got to have a way out. So if I get uncomfortable, it's like, all right, y'all, well, I got to run. See you later. Peace. Bye. Yeah, so anyways, kind of going on and on about it there. We do got some stuff we want to get to on the podcast tonight, so I'm not going to go too much further into my story. I interject different things throughout the show on each episode of the podcast where I talk about my story, my experience, and everything, y'all. But the purpose of the podcast has always been that we hope we might be able to help someone. And that's what we say in that promotion, that little intro, I should say, to the beginning of the show that Dean put together for us, which I love. Very professionally done. And it does talk about what the main purpose of this show was, to try to be an inspiration to anybody who may be going through that shit looking for a way out. And I'll say this even again about myself. I say this every show. I've even had people tell me, oh God, Glenn, you fucking repeat yourself every goddamn show. It's like you always got to go over it. Well, yeah, I do, because we have learned and found that we get new viewers and listeners practically every single week with this show, and we hear from them. We've shared DMs and messages on this show many times that we get from people who come across the podcast who either reach out to us for information, for help, for input, thanking us for what we're doing, whatever the case may be. Because, like I said, we're live on all these different platforms, and then the recorded version is posted. And it'll be there for God only knows till the end of time, I suppose. And we love hearing from people. But the point is, we get new people, new viewers, listeners every week. So, yeah, we like to talk a little bit on the front end about what this podcast is all about, what the purpose of the podcast is. So, if you're someone new to the show, watching or listening for the first time, our hope is that, yeah, we might be an inspiration to you to, as we say, fuck the stigma, you know. So what? You developed a substance abuse disorder, you know. I'm not going to call you an addict. That's for everyone else to decide for themselves, you know. But if you got a problem, you know, there is a way out. And if you're anything like me and you are, dealing with addiction, but you're looking for a way out, maybe you Googled how to get through opiate withdrawals, how to kick an addiction. Maybe you went on YouTube and typed in, opiate withdrawals or how to get through opiate withdrawal, tips for it. That's what I was doing. Like I said, I tried kicking for a couple of years, really, before I finally was able to. And I came across a lot of information. There's some really good stuff out there. There really is. There's really good stuff on YouTube. You'll come across videos, different things. And a lot of that stuff that I found helped me. And we've talked a lot about it on the show. We've shared a lot of that information in previous episodes of the show. What I'll also say is I never came across anything like what we're doing. That's for goddamn sure. I mean, there are some cool podcasts out there. We've talked about some of them. In fact, I talked about the stigma. There's a podcast out there called Fuck the Stigma. Highly recommend. Man, this young girl, she's so good at what she does. And she talks about the stigma attached to a lot of things other than just addiction, but it's a great podcast. There's another one called Recovery in the Middle Ages. Love those guys, man. There's two guys in their middle ages that, talk about, addiction and they kind of maintain that anonymity factor, and they have this little catchphrase. They say, oh God, if the neighbors only knew. So anyway, no anonymity on my part with this podcast. Obviously, like I said, dare me, I just put it all out there, man. And so anyway, with all that said, yeah, we hope that we may get to someone who comes across our podcast looking for information. And that's really the main target for this podcast. This podcast ain't for everybody. I happen to know we do have quite a few viewers and listeners that ain't even addicts. And we try to provide, and I think we do a pretty good job of it, entertaining content for anyone. Maybe even for a family member, an employer, an employee, a coworker who may be struggling with addiction that could benefit from some of the information we talk about and share on this podcast. So, if anything we're doing on here, like we say, every fucking week helps even one person, then it's all worth it. If someone can benefit from my misfortune, from my struggles, and me being open and honest and vulnerable, because, oh, yeah, believe me, I second guess myself all the time about what I've been doing with this podcast. Like, oh, good God, what the fuck have I done, man? I put myself out there. People must think I'm fucking nuts, and I am a little crazy. I say it all the time. I might be crazy, but I'm not fucking stupid. Oh, we know exactly what we're doing with this podcast, y'all. And again, our hope is that we could help even one person. And by the way, we know that we have, just based on the input and the feedback that we've gotten. And so that kind of brings me full circle. To where I wanted to go with our next slide. And I'm going to bring that up right now, y'all. This is a slide I've shown on this podcast before. It is a recap of our YouTube analytics for 2023. They sent me a recap of all the views we got on our channel in 2023. And we didn't even start this podcast till March 11th, and didn't plan it that way. It just happened to work out that we started it the same weekend that I got 2 years clean, and we're going to hit our 1 year anniversary with the podcast on my 3 years clean anniversary. It just worked out that way. It's bizarre, but the point I'm making is that we've got a lot of views now. Being totally transparent, y'all. A lot of these views are from the things Dean talked about, us posting reels. And we've got even a lot of shout outs from people. We've had a lot of high profile people, tune into this podcast or give us shout outs. We've had Lamar Odom gave us a shout out. Yeah, that Lamar Odom, Kardashians, NBA, Los Angeles Lakers player. Yeah, that Lamar Odom gave us a shout out. Had thousands of views on that reel. Billy Bob Thornton, the actor, yeah, that Billy Bob Thornton, Sling Blade, and all the rest. Yeah, he has tuned into the Dear Me podcast, gave us a shout out, got thousands of views on that one. Oh God, I could go on and on. The whole Leisure Band, the guys out of New Zealand who I love so much, I got to meet all them guys at a couple of their shows, gave us shout outs. That girl Mallrat, one of my favorite artists, Ragnar Rosenkrantz, Claire Rosenkrantz dad gave us a shout. I mean, I could go on name dropping all these people. Al Stewart, the legendary Al Stewart. Yeah, that Al Stewart, Year of the Cat and all that. So point I'm making is we've had a lot of attention from high profile people, man. And a lot of those reels generated a lot of views on our channel for this podcast. And so, where I was going with that is, yeah, man, I second guess myself sometimes like, oh God, what have I done? I remember, Dean, you saying to me when I first talked to you about this podcast, you said, oh, well, Glenn, we can do this. But once you ring that bell, bro, there ain't no unringing it. And, we're up to episode 49. So, yeah, no unringing that bell, man. And I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want it any other way. Look at this. We've had over 21,000 people tune in, and we know we've helped people. So, with all that said, y'all, when I decided to start this podcast, I did not know how long we'd go with it or whatever. And I made a commitment to do it for 1 year. I said, okay, if we're going to do this thing, we gotta make some kind of commitment, or what's the point? I just don't want to willy-nilly we'll do an episode or two or randomly do it, whatever the fuck. No, so we made a commitment to do it for 1 full year. Well, we're coming up on a year, and it's just 3 more episodes away. We'll have done 52 episodes of the Dare Me podcast. So I know I talked about it about a month ago, but there's been some progress in terms of what are we going to do from there. We're going to go on a little hiatus.
What to do?
We are. Yeah, what to do, because, I mean, quite frankly, like I said, it's taken on a life of its own, and it has become a lot more work than I ever thought it would. That old saying, man, be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. And then once you get it, you might not know what to do with it. And so, I was telling Dean just before we went on the air today, I've made a decision to work together with like a consultant, an advisor, a coach, if you will, who's, by the way, been a guest on this podcast. I'm going to talk a little bit more about who he is down the road, not go too deep into it tonight, but we had a long conversation a couple nights ago. And so once we finish up episode 52 in a few weeks here, and that, by the way, didn't plan it that way. It was going to be my 3 year clean anniversary. We're going to go on a little hiatus, and we'll continue to rerun some of the previous episodes. We're going to stick to our, 6 o'clock Pacific time, 9 o'clock Eastern time, Sunday night time. And not sure exactly how long we'll go on hiatus, but it's going to be for a little bit. But we'll continue to rebroadcast the shows. There's 50 of at that time. It'll be 52 of them, y'all. So we got plenty to choose from, and maybe do kind of a best of thing, because some of them were really, really good. Some of them, I gotta say, man, we've had some cringe episodes. I usually will go back and watch each of them at least once during the week. just to kind of critique it and say, oh, yeah, I didn't like the way we did that. Oh, I really like the way we did that. And yeah, we've had some cringe moments, but we've had some good stuff too. So, like I said, I try to put together kind of a best of thing. And then when we come back with Dare Me 2.0, that's what we're going to call it, they're going to be pre-recorded editions of the show. The whole live thing is going to kind of go to the wayside. Like I said, y'all, we get most of our viewers and listeners out of that 20 however many thousand it was, check out recorded editions. And so it's going to give Dean and I a lot more flexibility, like Dean just talked about at the front end of the show. Dean, God, man, you've been going since 8 o'clock this morning, 3 podcasts in one day. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier, where we'll be able to record the show at whatever damn time we decide on during the course of the week. It'll make it easier for me as well in terms of scheduling guests. And we don't have to do the show at the exact same time every week. And quite frankly, as we all know who watch and listen to podcasts, that's how most podcasts are done. They're recorded and then posted for people to watch or listen to at whatever time they want. So anyway, all that's coming up, y'all. And I thought we'd talk about that just a little bit. But now I want to shift gears and talk about this because it occurred to me, man. As a society,
Hey, Glenn.
yeah, go ahead. Bro.
I don't know if you saw my note, but G is on the phone.
In the private chat?
No, but that's okay. I'm telling you now, G is on the phone.
Oh, okay. No. I
There he is. He's on.
We have a live caller. Are you there?
What's up?
Hey, what's happening? G Money's on the line. And for those that don't know, I'll just say G Money has been a guest on the show before, and he's actually my son. Glenn Jr. is coming to us live right now. Thanks for calling in, man. What's happening, kiddo?
Not much, just listening in and liking what I'm hearing, and can't believe that a year's coming up.
Yeah, wow. I know. Isn't it crazy? Where does the time go? It's crazy, man.
Yeah, episode 50 next week.
Yeah, episode 50. And I'm going to put a little more prep work into next week's show. This week, man, I didn't really do a whole lot of prep until I had some things in mind, but till about an hour before the show, Dean and I were kind of, rushing to get everything together. And, we got a couple news stories we're going to go to, got a shout out and some funny memes. But other than that, man, that's really all we got tonight. We're going to do one.
I was missing the live episodes. I watched the rerun last week, and then I was excited for this one to be live. So,
yeah. Well, hey, and by the way, I got to say, you and that boy Shebang, and maybe Shebang might tune in later. You guys do it to me every Sunday when it's crunch time, and I'm trying to get ready. That's another reason I'm looking forward to getting away from the live thing. It's always crunch time. That's when you guys decide to call me. When I'm like, God damn, man, I ain't got time right now. I got to call you because I saw you called earlier, and I apologize. I missed you, but it just wasn't a good time. And I thought, well, I'll call him after the show. So I'm glad you called in, man. Well, G, I don't
master timing.
Yeah. Well, hey, what are you up to today, man? Did you hit the gym or
Actually just got back from a hike called Coco Head Hike here in Hawaii, and it was real nice. It's like this mountain, and they have stairs that handmade stairs that lead all the way up to the top, and then you get a beautiful ocean view. So when you come visit, I definitely want to take you on that hike because it's an amazing view once you get to the top, and it's a good workout too.
Well, since you mentioned it, G, I'm going to go ahead and talk about it now because I have not mentioned this yet at all on the show. And you and I had talked about, doing it at some point in time. And I was actually thinking, because I'm going to be coming to visit you here soon, and I thought we might talk about it then. But you went ahead and let the cat out of the bag. So I'm going to talk about it right now. My son, G Money Glenn Jr., is now living in Honolulu, Hawaii, y'all. And has been there for, what has it been, about a month now, Glenn?
Yeah, it's been a little over a month.
Yeah, well, I had to mention it because, we do have regular viewers and listeners in addition to our new people. And by the way, I want to send a shout out to Jay, who is in our chat room right now. And also, I see we got several people still in the viewing room. So welcome to y'all. And shout out, Jay. Thanks for joining our show in the chat room, Jay. You're welcome to call in if you like once we get off the line with G as well. Dean will put that phone number up on the screen again in a little bit. But yeah, Glenn, as you know, you've been a guest on the podcast several times in the past, and we even went live from where you used to live in downtown, midtown Miami. We did a live edition of the show right from the balcony of that high rise at the Art Plaza where you were living. And I don't mean to speak for you, but as you and I know, you had an offer that you couldn't refuse in your line of work, and now are living in beautiful Honolulu on a project that's supposed to go, I think you said, for like 7-8 years. And I just can't wait to come visit you. I've been watching some of the videos that you post on social media in your stories and all. And, again, I don't mean to speak for you, kiddo, but I know you're living like right on the beach. It's just so bizarre how life works out sometimes. And as a father, man, I am just so proud of you and so happy for you, by the way, and your beautiful wife as well, my daughter-in-law Awana. So congratulations, man, on you earned this.
Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, no, living in gratitude, and it's I'm a safety manager, and
Yeah,
it's
OSHA
safety kind of
rep.
changed my life, right? And so I've been able to live in some great places, New York, Miami, now Hawaii. But I say all that to say that for people listening too that might not know that you were going through what you're going through, but you were also functioning and you were working at the safety council. So I grew up around it. So where I'm at now in life, I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for you. And I just wanted to say that because I have been very blessed and fortunate right now, and living where I'm living has been exciting. But I just know that I wouldn't be here without a good father and you, and kind of introducing me to the career that I've chosen. So I appreciate it, and I can't wait for you to come visit because we're gonna have a good time.
Wow. Well, thank you for saying that, G. And you know what? I've told people, in my personal life and friends, we talk about it. It's come up sometimes. And I'll always say, well, you know what? I never pushed G into safety, which, as you know, I never did. It's just you did grow up around it. I've talked about it on this podcast. I worked for a company called the United Safety Council for 25 years. I had two careers in my working life. I worked for Metro Traffic Control and Traffic Post for 20 years. And I also worked for the United Safety Council for 25. So G grew up around safety, and we would go to different expos and trade shows and safety fairs. And if you remember, kiddo, when you were a little kid, we sat through CPR and first aid classes together. And then, even before you chose OSHA safety and occupational safety, you took it upon yourself to go to college and earned your EMT certification and all, and had thought about going into fire science and maybe a fireman and all. And then it just worked out where you ended up going into safety. And man, like you said, it's been a great journey for you, man. You've worked on some huge projects and worked in Orlando, biggest tourist destination of the world. You worked in the Big Apple of New York City, which, by the way, as you remember, kiddo, was during the pandemic. Then you worked in downtown Miami, and now there you are in Honolulu. So, yeah, it just blows my mind. You just never know how things are going to work out in life, man. I mean it, kiddo. I'm so proud of you and so happy that you called into the show tonight. It's been too long since we've had you on,
Yeah, we gotta do an episode live from here when you come visit.
Absolutely. You know what? And I'm planning that trip real soon, and we'll call it the Aloha edition. Who knows if things work out? Maybe that'll be our last live edition, and then we'll say Aloha from Hawaii, and then we'll go
Yeah, that
to the.
acronym exercise when we do the hike that I want to take you on, it's definitely a challenge, but you feel so accomplished when you complete it. So we can do that hike and then do a live episode, and you can talk about how you felt
Yeah.
completing it
Well,
right
hey,
around your 3 year mark. So congratulations on
Well,
that
hey, kiddo,
because
I'm still in the gym on the regular, man. Matter of fact, I went the other night, night before last. I was there for 4 hours. And by the way, if you're a new viewer or listener to our show, or even a regular, and maybe you missed the one, I don't remember what episode it was, but if you go to that Dare Me Podcast YouTube channel, click on the videos tab and scroll through all the episodes there. There's one called Get Fit with G and me. And that was a great episode where we talked all about fitness and exercise and how, as you know, G, I often say, and it's true, man, you inspired me to get back into physical shape and coached me because, man, I gained a lot of weight. I got up to 189 pounds, y'all, which, hey, that might not be a lot for some people, but I'm not a real tall guy. I'm like 5'7". And no disrespect to anybody that carries extra pounds, but that's way too fucking heavy for me. And I went on a mission to lose all that weight, and I did, with the help of you, Glenn, my son G, who's such a uh, uh, inspirational person when it comes to fitness. I don't know anybody in better shape than you, Glenn, and I am forever grateful to you for helping me to get inspired to get back in the gym and coaching me back to good physical health, man. And I just love going to the gym. I was there 4 hours the other night and it was great, man.
yeah, you replaced one addiction with another, but this one's healthier. So
Yeah, this is
proud
a
of you.
good healthy addiction. Well, when I'm in the gym, man, I'm in my zone because you know how much I love music. We talk about music on this podcast all the time, which we're going to even talk a little bit about tonight. And I put them earbuds in. I got those Apple Airbud Pros or whatever the hell they call them. I just love it, man. They sound so great. And I'm just vibing, listening to my music and in between reps, I'll start getting these ideas for reels I put together. I know you see a lot of my promo reels, and I'll be listening to a song and I'll hear certain lyrics and I'll go, "Ooh, that'll make a good reel, a good promo for the show." And so sometimes I'll in between reps, man, I'll be there fucking working on a reel for a long time and then pump some more. And, but anyway, man, I just love going to the gym, because it really, in addition to being good for your physical health, it's also great for your mental health, man. Gets them endorphins flowing and the dopamine flowing, the adrenaline, man, and you just feel so good about doing it. So if somebody is watching this show and comes across this show that's struggling with addiction, man, oh my God, I know how hard it is to even think about going to the gym or exercise. And especially if you're going through opiate withdrawals when it just zaps the fuck out of your energy. I'm telling you, man, just push yourself. You won't be able to do it if you're going through withdrawals in first few days or even week. You just won't. I get it. You just won't. You don't have the energy to do it. But once you get through that first week or so, I promise you, man, get yourself to the gym. It'll just make you feel so much better. So anyway, yeah, we want to say hi to Jay again in the chat room. I couldn't quite tell what baseball field that was there, but it looks like whoever Jay is has a profile picture in a baseball field. So anyway, though, Glenn, I gotta ask you, since we're talking about fitness and exercise and all that, did you watch the UFC Volkanovski fight last night?
I didn't watch it live, but I watched like some highlights on YouTube. So I saw that I saw that he got knocked out. So that was surprising because he's
Yeah.
been said to be one of the greatest of all time. So it just
Yeah.
shows that time catches up to you, and I think his last fight he got knocked out as well. So it sounds like he needs to take a little break and do some soul searching. But yeah, what a good fight.
Yeah, I did not see the fight, saw some highlights, and I've seen, some guys that, commentators, whatever, saying, yeah, man, maybe he needs to take a break for a minute and kind of step back, look at the big picture and regroup. But, well, since, I brought up UFC, I can't resist bringing up as well, Dustin Poirier, that boy Dustin Poirier. And without going too deep into it, G, we've talked on this podcast many times how you and Dustin have kind of become buddies, and you've gone to a couple of the 5K runs that he hosts for his Good Fight Foundation, which is such a wonderful organization, man, a nonprofit where they help out, kids struggling with cancer and things to that nature. And I'm so proud of you, man, that you took it upon yourself to get involved and fly all the way from Miami to Louisiana to support that organization and participate in those 5K runs. And, shout out again to Dustin, man, for, giving back, to the community and being such a great person. So I got to ask, G, what do you think's going to happen, man? Well, I know what you think's going to happen with his next fight. He's got one coming up too, right?
Yeah, if anyone listening wants to support a good cause, nonprofit foundation, the Good Fight Foundation, they're always setting goals. They're not tied to one specific goal, but they're always looking to raise money for, other goals that might come about. But you can go to thegoodfightgroup.com and place a donation. And I think they got a big goal coming up for his fight in a few weeks that they're going to announce. And then, his fight is going to be, go figure, in Miami in 3 weeks. So I lived there 3 years, right next to the arena. And then it was the day I landed in Hawaii, I found out he was going to be fighting in Miami. But so I won't make it. So it's a little disappointing, but I'll be rooting for him from Hawaii. But I think he's going to make a statement and go home with a win. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm always rooting for Dustin anytime he fights, and I think it's going to be a great one. And hey, I'm pretty confident it's as high with me that he'll do good on that one as well, man. And hey, you just never know where he might end up fighting again. So, I just couldn't resist asking you about that, G. So, yeah, man, I'll be working on my travel plans. And like I said, y'all, if things work out the way I'm even kind of sort of thinking, we may end up doing that 1 year anniversary 52nd edition.
Yeah, we got to do it that way. You know what's gonna? I'm sorry to cut you off. I just want to say this. You know what's gonna be so special is I have this memory. When you helped me move to Miami is right when you were first kicking, and I just remember that you were getting a little winded just kind of going up the stairwell, helping me move, some stuff in. And when you get here and you're 3 years clean, we're going to do this hike up a mountain. And when we complete it, it's going to be hard not to get emotional because I know you're going to complete it, but it's just going to be kind of a testament of like how far you really have come. And I'm excited to complete it with you and then do an episode with you. So, just keep that same mindset, stay on the same path you're on, and sky's the limit, and we're doing well. And like I said too, I wouldn't be where I'm at without you. It makes me feel proud that I was an inspiration to you as well. So, get your ticket booked so we can do this.
Yeah. Well, I got to ask now, that mountain you mentioned, is that one I saw you post a picture of that has all the steps going up it?
Yeah, that's the one. I just did it again today, actually. So
yeah,
but it's kind of easy because you got all those steps. Not easy, but like you have steps that go all the way up to the top. But it's a bit steep, and it's a challenge. But I know you can do it. So.
Well, what I thought of, and I think maybe this even came to your mind going up, is the Rocky steps, when he goes up the steps and then he's at the top, so,
That's my high. That's my high. Like, I never dabbled in, drugs or anything, but my high is like when you're getting challenged and you don't think you're going to make it to the top and then you complete it, it's just the greatest feeling ever. So that's how I, you know.
Yeah, well,
Feels.
man,
But
I'm
yeah,
just so
yeah, it's
proud
like
of
the
you.
Rocky steps.
Yeah. Well, hey, we'll do it for sure. Now we got to do it because we talked about it here on the podcast, man. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, what a great way that would be to wrap this whole 1 year journey and commitment I made to doing this podcast and just wrap the whole 1 year live thing up with Aloha from Hawaii edition. So, yeah, man, you got me thinking. I'm gonna get busy as soon as I finish up the podcast tonight. I'm gonna take the dog out for a bit, go get something to eat, maybe go to the gym later, and then I'm gonna get busy. I'm booking that flight, man. I'll keep you posted. And
Cool.
I'll be honest with you, Glenn. I could use it, man. I need it. I've been going through a little bit of a funk lately, some personal issues, some of which you're familiar with. I really don't want to go into on the show right now or anything. And
Yeah.
and then the weather here has been kind of shitty lately. Like yesterday, man, it was awful. It was cold, wet, dark, gloomy, rainy, just one of them days where you just want to cuddle up under the blanket with your little dog next to you and watch TV. I didn't even want to go out, man. I hate days like that. Today it was nice out, it's a little cloudy, but sun was out. It was a nicer day, but man, I'm one of them guys, bro, where the weather just affects my mood, man. When it's sunny out, I am on. But when it's cold and gray and gloomy, oh my God, it reminded me of them old winters when I was growing up in the Midwest. I hated it, man. I did not like it. So,
Guess that's why you
yeah,
moved to Florida.
yeah, that's exactly why I
Yeah.
moved to Florida. As I often say, I had vacation there many times before I moved there for spring break during school and all that. And when I went to Florida, I thought, all right, well, let's go down there. We'll try it for a year, see how it goes. If it don't work out, I'll go back. Ended up staying there 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well,
man,
the
believe
weather here
me,
has been amazing, but so
yeah,
rain or shine, we're gonna have a good time no matter what. So book your ticket, and
yeah,
then yeah, that'd be a great way to cap off the 1 year. So we'll talk offline later. But
yeah, you bet.
have a good rest of your episode, and I'll be listening. Okay.
Okay, G. Well, hey, what a great surprise, man. I appreciate you calling in. Go do you, bro, and we'll talk again real soon. I love you, kiddo.
Love you too, Dad. Bye.
All right, bye. Wow, y'all, how cool is that? My son Glenn calls in live on the Dare Me podcast. Man, I'm so blessed, man. My kids, I just love them to death so much. I also have big news with my other child, but I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag on that one just yet. I got to talk to her about it first. But man, I just, so many good things going on in my life right now, man. And, it just goes to show, bro, that, man, just as little as a few years ago, I was so fucked up on that dope and using that I felt like I wanted to die. I literally felt like I wanted to die. I was so sick. And I started talking about this earlier on the podcast that, addiction, substance abuse disorder, whatever the hell you want to call it, people call it a disease, and that's always messed with me and a lot of people. That word disease, it's almost like, ooh, I don't want to get any on me, that stigma, the word disease, but it actually has been, clinically, what's the word I'm looking for? Stamped and approved as a disease by the American Medical Association or whatever the hell it is. If that word disease fucks with you, if you're a person trying to get clean, struggling with addiction, think of it as a sickness. That's how I get past that whole thing, because I don't think any of us can deny it is a sickness. It's a physical sickness. Oh, it damn sure affects your physical health. It's a mental sickness because, man, your thinking gets all screwed up. Like I said, I felt like I wanted to die, and it's all intertwined. I felt like I wanted to die because my physical health was so screwed up as well. And then it's also a spiritual sickness, man. And when I think in terms of spirituality, I ain't talking about religion or God or anything like that. For me, spirituality has to do with peace, having peace in your life and not feeling like you want to die, not walking around angry, depressed, resentful, whatever the fuck all day, every day, just having some serenity in your life, some peace, and just being okay and going with the flow on good days and bad days, And like I was saying, man, yesterday, this is a shitty day for me. I was not in the mood for nothing. Even like I knew we were doing this show today. I didn't do a bit of fucking prep on this show yesterday because I just wasn't in the mood. I didn't feel like it, And so I'm just saying, man, you got to have some peace in your life. And where I was going with that is it's all tied to living clean and sober for guys like me, for girls like me. If you're a real one that truly is an addict, struggling with addiction, substance abuse disorder, whatever you want to call it, and you're trying to live clean and sober, you got to have some peace in your life. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day, is having peace in your life so you don't get a case of the fuckets and just say, fuck it, I'm going to go get high. I'll go get loaded. And I don't have to deal with this shit, And we power through it. And then we reap the benefits and the gifts like what we just experienced. I did. And that's where I was going with that. Have my wonderful son who's been so supportive of, me and what I'm going through. Like he said, man, I was a functioning addict through most of that shit, it didn't get real bad till that last couple of years. Really, that last year is when it really, really got bad for me. But I was a functioning addict. And so if you're one of them people who's still functioning, still going to work all day, every day, all week, whatever, but you're struggling, man, you can get through it. It doesn't have to get that bad, What was that saying around the programs? Unfortunately, most people have to reach a pretty bad bottom before they're able or willing to try to do something about it. But I remember my first sponsor, this guy Chester, may he rest in peace, way back in the day, used to say to me, because we'd be sitting in meetings and we'd be driving home and I'd say, God damn, that motherfucker sharing the night, he was all fucked up. I ain't that bad. And he taught me to put a yet on the end of it and say, yeah, well, Glenn, you ain't that bad yet. Let that motherfucker carry you a message that's how bad it could get if you keep going at the pace you've been going. And then he'd say to me, how bad does it got to get before you're willing to do something about it? Do you have to start to suffer physical ailments like liver failure, kidney failure, wet brain, whatever the fuck, from drinking so goddamn much, or a heart attack from doing so much fucking coke, or whatever the fuck? How bad does it got to get physically before you're willing to do something about it? How bad does it got to get mentally before you're willing to do something about it? Do you have to get to the point where you feel like you want to fucking die? You know when you're fucking up. When you've been using too much. When that shit's got you, where you can't stop and you're using it. You have that aha moment where you finally end up saying, God damn, man, I've been getting high every single day for however long. Put your time amount on the end of that sentence, How bad does it got to get legally or financially? Do you got to get in a car wreck and total your car from being too drunk to be driving? Do you got to get arrested, for getting in a car crash and injuring, or even worse, killing somebody? Is that how bad it's got to get before you're willing to do something about it? You got to go to jail. You got to go to prison. What the fuck? Do you got to go bankrupt, lose your job, lose your marriage, lose your kids where they won't even talk to you anymore, your family, whatever? How bad does it got to get? Is the point he was making, and the point I'm trying to make. It doesn't have to get that bad. Unfortunately, for most people who become addicts, alcoholics, whatever the fuck, pick your name for it, you know what I mean? How bad does it got to get? And unfortunately, it's got to get pretty bad before people are willing to do something about it. Sometimes interventions take place. Hello, and they don't always even work right out of the gate. You see sometimes on television these shows, intervention, where people will have a a car ready and waiting for them to take them right to treatment at the end of the intervention, and sometimes that works, sometimes it don't. But sometimes when it don't work, where they're not ready to go right on the spot, at least the seed has been planted. And then sometimes, man, just takes reaching out to someone. Here's an old friend of mine, this kid Edwin, back in Detroit, where I was going to meetings. And I'll never forget, man, he closed a meeting once because, usually you kind of get in a circle and either, hug each other, hold hands sometimes is how, they do it in certain places. And you'll read a certain thing or say the serenity prayer or whatever, and they'll say, hey, whoever, why don't you take us home? Let's close the meeting. And I remember he said once, hey, man, let's form this circle to remind ourselves, we can do together what it just seemed like we never could do alone. And hey, if there's somebody from around here that you haven't seen in a while, maybe give them a call, man. Check in on them just to, not necessarily see what they're doing, but see how they're doing. Let them know that, man, we miss them around here and we're thinking about them. And then he said, you might just save a life, and the life you save might even be your own. Doing that 12-step work is really what that is, man. And sometimes, man, we got to remember that, especially for a guy like me, a relapser who's relapsed not once, but twice after long-term clean time and recovery in the 12-step rooms. Man, relapse, boy, oh boy, we don't like to talk about it a lot, but the reality is, man, in 12-step rooms, relapse is more common than I think we like to acknowledge. As a matter of fact, more people I've met have had relapses than don't. God bless the people who came in, got clean, and stayed clean and never relapsed. God bless them. I sometimes will say, man, you guys are my fucking heroes. Real ones, though, who ain't caught up in the ego bullshit, will say to me, oh, Glenn, don't put me on no pedestal. Yeah, I might have been clean that long, but I'm one bad choice away from ending right back where I was or worse, just like you are. Just as close as the person with one day clean, one bad choice away. And that certainly held true for me, man, with almost 17 years clean at one time, 6 years clean another time, coming up on 3 again. I'm still just one bad choice away from going right back down that fucking rabbit hole or worse and end up fucking dying. And there were people that reached out to me during my relapses. Thank God for some of my real friends from the 12-step rooms, man. I'm forever grateful for some of them folks, man, who didn't give up on me. And I'm not even necessarily, I don't mean that in a negative way about anybody who didn't reach out to me. It's just people get on with their lives, man. And people who are living clean and sober, they don't really want to fucking talk to people that are using. It's like, I don't talk to that motherfucker. I get that. I'll also say, man, when you've relapsed and you're caught up in that fucking addiction again and you don't hear from anybody, you do develop an attitude like, fuck all them people. See, they never gave a fuck about me anyways, because that's how, like I said, man, your thinking gets sick. You start thinking that way. But anyway, I'm kind of getting off topic, man. I guess where I was going with that is, yeah, man, if there's somebody from the rooms, if you're a person in the recovery community and you haven't seen them in a while, maybe give them a call, man. Maybe send them a text. Like I said, not to see what they're doing, just check in with them, see how they're doing. Say, hey, man, we miss you. We miss you around here, man. We miss the message you carried. We miss your presence, It could make the difference, because I know it damn sure made me think a lot about, the community that I left behind that I felt like I betrayed when I started using again, man. And that shit, it never left me. So, yeah, man, even going back to that whole thing I talked about with intervention, sometimes maybe the person won't agree to go to a treatment or try to get clean on the spot. But we planted that seed when we intervene, and now they think to themselves, God damn, I must be fucked up. Once they got a chance to let it sit with them and process once they're alone again, like, whoo, fuck, I must be bad, man. The motherfuckers intervene trying to help me get clean now. Sometimes planting the seed It takes a little while, but it can make a difference. And I have stories like that too in interventions I participated in where, yeah, the person was very defensive at first, but ended up getting clean and still living clean today. So, yeah, anyways, y'all, with all that said, shout out again to that boy G. Where I was going when I started that whole little rant I just went on is how things truly do go full circle sometimes. And it's all a direct result of, for me, living clean and sober. And thank God I didn't check out and throw in the towel like I felt like. I shouldn't be laughing about it, but, you got to have a fucking sense of humor about it. Thank God that I didn't go that far. I sure felt like I wanted to fucking die, but thank God, man, I was able to get clean and start working on things like get my physical health back, going to yoga, meditation, things we've talked about on this podcast many times to work on my spirituality, my mental health, trying to have peace in my life. I ain't no expert at doing it. Like I said, I have shitty days all the time. My day yesterday was not good, man. I was in a shitty, depressed, gloomy fucking mood and just been processing some anger and resentment lately that I'm still trying to get through over some personal family bullshit, and just, life, man, fucking life, but we get through that stuff. And when we get through it clean and sober, if we're a real one trying to work, a program and stay clean and sober, man, we come out the other side even stronger for it. And then start to experience the gifts like what we had tonight, man, with my beautiful son, my handsome young man son, calling in, who's living the dream, man, living his best life. And I'm so proud of him. And anyway, G, if you're still watching, listening, thanks for calling in. So, Dean, I want to get back to what a treat and surprise that was. Dean, if we could, let's go ahead and flash that phone number up on the screen again. I see we still got several people in the viewing room. If anybody wants to call in, Jay, if you're still there in the chat room, feel free to call in. If you're somebody listening to the podcast, not actually viewing, but just listening, that telephone number to call if you want to check in with us live is 407-924-3946. And so with all that said, I want to get back to these slides because right before G checked in, which again, G, thanks for calling, bro. Appreciate it, man. Kiddo, I love you. I was going to talk about this. When I started to say right before he called was, man, we as a society, we got our priorities all fucked up. I was really thinking about this, putting this show together. It's like, I'm just as guilty as the next person with this, but you can see I got this notification. This is a Facebook notification, and you can see it says, "Nice job. Your reel reached 25,000 plays." And then, of course, it says you can watch it again or make a new reel. Well, this particular reel that at this time got over 25,000 views actually got, if you look on the right there, over 27,000 views. It's referring to the same reel. I just pulled this screenshot today, not too long before today's show, to see what it was up to now. Over 27,000 views on this reel I put together. I've never had anything I've ever posted ever on any social media platform ever get that many views. To me, for me, your old pal Glenn Victor, that's fucking going viral. Okay. Now, I've read things online that until you get 100,000 views, you haven't really gone viral. But for me, 27,000 people watching something I fucking posted or designed or created or came up with fucking blows my mind. 27,000 people. That's a lot of fucking people, man. And, if you haven't figured out where I'm going with this yet, I'm going to show you that reel in just a second. But what I was saying is how we as a society have our priorities all fucked up, yours truly included. Is this reel I'm about to show you is a sports reel. It was about the Detroit Lions football team before they lost that game against San Francisco. If you're a football fan, you know that I'm a big Lions fan. Like I said, I grew up in the Midwest in Detroit before I moved to Florida. They've never been to the Super Bowl. They had the best season they probably ever had this last season. They made it to the playoffs. They beat the LA Rams. They beat the Tampa Bay Bucks. They played the 49ers. All they had to do was beat them to go to the Super Bowl. They ended up losing that game. But before that game, I put together this hype reel. I was talking earlier about how when I'm in the gym in between reps, I'll be listening to music and I'll hear different lyrics and I get these ideas sometimes like, oh, that'll make a good reel. And so I was listening to this Jay Giles playlist I have. And this Jay Giles band song, Detroit Breakdown came on. And I'm like, fuck, that'd be a perfect song to do a hype reel for the Detroit Lions game. And so I just start getting ideas. I'll put this graphic, this picture, and all that other stuff. And I will say, I ain't toot my own horn, but it's a pretty fucking cool reel. And man, I got shot. That reel was shared so many times, and people, got back to me. There's this famous restaurant in Detroit, the Lafayette Coney, man. I mean, they fucking shared it. The Troy Police Department sharing this reel. Well, you can see over 27,000 views. But if you haven't figured out where I'm going with this yet, you can see that next to this, we have a couple of reels that Dean works hard on putting together. I put them together sometimes too. And they're clips from our podcast talking about the fentanyl crisis and people dying and addiction. And we're trying to help people. And this one's got 108 views and that one's got 104. Now, what the fuck is that all about, man? Here, you would hope that more people would be watching reels or sharing or liking reels having to do with battling this epidemic of fentanyl and this opioid epidemic and trying to help save people's lives. And we're lucky sometimes if we get 100 views, sometimes less than that. Meanwhile, we put a reel out there, hyping a football team and over 27,000 fucking people watch it. Just blows my mind, man. So, but like I said, man, I'm as guilty as the next person. Sometimes I'm a sports fan. I'm a music fan. I've done things on this podcast where, I've gone to different concerts and I've even got to interview or get shout outs from different people. And I'm like a fucking fangirl tripping all over myself sometimes and Stan and all that shit. And, we tend to idolize these people that are really just people just like us, man. They get up and take a shit at the beginning of the day and put their socks and underwear on just like the rest of us. But we like to idolize people, don't we? We put them on this pedestal because they can play football or they can sing or play a guitar or whatever the fuck, and it's just like they're just another person, just like the rest of us. And we idolize them, don't we? Hey, like I said, I'm in that category with some too. I try to keep it in check. And I remember, Dean, you saying to me once on this show, like, God damn, Glenn, you really do go overboard sometimes with idolizing some of these musicians and all that stuff. And so anyway, I'm not putting us out there in any kind of negative way or anything like that. I'm just saying that, man, it fucking blows my mind that, we do all this stuff with this podcast and we do get a lot of views. These two particular ones just happen to be next to this reel, 108 views, 104. We've had some reels that have gotten thousands of views that we've put out, little excerpts from the show, a la Joe Rogan, how he does these little, shorties on TikTok and whatnot from his podcast. We kind of took his lead and we're doing the same thing. And, we get a lot of views on some of them, but just blows my mind that we had 27,000 on this Lions hype reel, but not even close to as many on some of the stuff we do from the show. So with all that said, of course, I got to play the reel. Let me just find it here. Okay. Here it is, y'all. Let's go ahead and play this reel that got over 27,000 views. Check it out.
The moment of truth has finally come. Are you ready to do some stomping, baby? Are you ready on the bandstand? Detroit breakdown! Detroit breakdown. Motor City shakedown. Detroit breakdown. Motor City shakedown. Jumping coat, everything goes. Hot summer night, I'm sweating right in my clothes. Bittersweet, the dancing beat. Everybody goes dear Bobby. Everybody goes dear Bobby. Everybody goes dear Bobby. Right in the street, through the Detroit breakdown. Motor City shakedown. Detroit breakdown. Motor City, break it down now, baby. Come on, come.
Yeah, so there you go, y'all. That's the hype reel I put together for the Lions game when they were going into that game with the San Francisco 49ers. Had they won, they would have went to the Super Bowl. And they didn't win. If you've been living under a rock, even if you're not a football fan, man, that was so heartbreaking, y'all. And what made it worse, as I've said, man, being a Lions fan since I was a little kid, I mean, literally since I can remember, a 5, 6-year-old kid, never been to the Super Bowl, and they came out in the first half and they played their hearts out. They were up by 17 points. I called the game on social media. I'm still fucking humiliated that I got so cocky that I was posting shit like, oh, it's over. We won. They'll never come back from this. And guess what? The Lions never showed back up after they left, for the locker room at the half. And as I posted, man, when the Lions lose, they don't just lose, they break your fucking heart. And that's what happened that day, man, for Lions fans all over the country and other parts of the world, man. Our hearts are still broken. I'm still processing that shit. Oh, God, it was fucking awful, man. I was so fucked up and depressed over that. But anyway, hey, man, I'm going to put it to bed. The football season's over. We all know Kansas City won the Super Bowl, and which, by the way, the Lions beat them the first game of the season. Oh, God, I got to let it go. But anyway, yeah, man, how bizarre is that? The most viral video I've ever posted or social media post ever. I did a Lions hype reel, and it's still accumulating views, over 27,000 views. So, yeah, man, you can get creative with some of these reels sometimes, and that one actually was kind of fun to put together. So moving along, y'all, let's go into the opioid crisis news. Man, this show's going on a little bit longer than I thought it would, Dean. I was so glad we got that call from G Money, but yeah, that took a little extra time on the show today. I thought we'd be done by now, but we're going to go through a few opioid crisis in the news stories, and then we got a quick shout out and a couple funny memes, and then we'll wrap it up. So not too much more to go. So this first story in the news, man, this is God, it fucking blows my mind, man. We post stories from a variety of news outlets, and this one from NPR, man, you can see it's just from a few days ago, February 16th, and here's the headline, man. More kids are dying of drug overdoses, and it says, could pediatricians be doing more to help? So, this kid's underage, so they, only show the back of it, maintain his anonymity. But there's this doctor, Dr. Sefdar, who's a pediatrician, working together with this kid who became addicted to opiates. And so here's part of the story. It says Medina's treating Sam for an addiction to opioids. He prescribed a medication called buprenorphine, and we've talked about it on this show many times. That it's a substitute. It's like medication assisted treatment. It's Suboxone is what it is. And Suboxone's a brand name, but that's the drug, and it curbs cravings for opioids, like it says there. So they got this kid on the Suboxone, and they're doing urine tests for perks and Oxycontin and all that. And he goes on to talk about how he tells the kid he's proud of him and so on and so forth. So good for that kid, that, and good for the doc prescribing it, because if you look at this next part of the article, it says that the buprenorphine prescriptions for adolescents are declining, but overdose deaths for 10 to 19-year-olds have more than doubled, as of this report. And it says these overdoses combined with accidental opioid poisonings among young children are now the third leading cause of death for U.S. children. And man, oh man, I ain't going to sit here and read the whole article to you here, but you can look it up. And again, it's an NPR article, and it says here the main culprits are the fake Xannies, Adderall, or perk pills laced with fentanyl. And nearly 25% of the recent overdose deaths among 10 to 19-year-olds were traced to counterfeit pills. The people didn't even know, or the kids didn't even know that they were getting fentanyl. They didn't want to fucking die. So anyway, man, I wanted to show this story, not to, be depressing, bring us down, negative, whatever. I say it on here a lot. If you think that this opioid crisis is getting better, the fentanyl crisis, because you hear about all these settlements in the news with the pharmacies, Purdue Pharma, and they're paying millions and billions and all this, and law enforcement crackdowns and all that. If you think it's getting better, you are badly mistaken. It's not getting better. It's not even staying the same. It just keeps getting fucking worse. And I was glad to see NPR did this story, because these are our kids, y'all, 10 to 19-year-olds, and they won't even fucking prescribe the subs. But meanwhile, OD deaths have more than doubled, in the period of time that they studied for this story. So yeah, man, there's mixed schools of thought on whether subs should be prescribed for people, medication assisted treatment, especially in some of the 12-step rooms. There's these fucking people who say, oh, well, if you're on subs or methadone, you ain't really clean. Well, I've said it on here before, and I'll say it again. Hey, fuck you. Yeah, I said it. Because that shit is saving people's life. And if you want to talk shit and tell somebody they ain't really clean because they're taking medication assisted treatment, yeah, fuck you. Quit talking that shit, because it's driving people right out of the rooms, and they're fucking dying because you talk shit and say they ain't really clean. And then they decide, well, fuck, I don't even belong here, man. These motherfuckers talking shit, and then they go back and get some fentanyl laced bullshit and die. So yeah, I get fired up about it, man. Matter of fact, we just had, somebody here right in the Sacramento area in the recovery community just died from a fentanyl fucking OD this past week. We're going to talk about it a little bit more on next week's show. But yeah, man, if I sound like I get fired up about it, it's true, because I do, man. When you have been to a 12-step meeting and you're sitting right next to somebody who's there sharing, pouring their heart out, how they're trying to get clean, how they're going through it, man. They're trying so fucking hard. And you come back the next night or a couple nights later and people are crying and that person's not there. And you ask, what's going on? And they say, well, so-and-so went back out, man. They got a hold of some bullshit. And now they're dead. The fuck? So yeah, until that's happened to you, man, don't talk shit when you don't even know what the hell you're talking about. And so anyway, big props to that pediatrician for prescribing subs to that kid. Yeah, it's a controversial topic, but the point is, it's a drug that works. We've talked about it in depth on this show, man. It's just like with a diabetic. What? We don't want them to take insulin, which is a life-saving drug when you have a sickness. Well, like we talked about on the show tonight, addiction is a sickness. Substance abuse disorder is a sickness. If there's a medication that someone can take to keep them from taking this shit off the streets or these bullshit pills laced with fentanyl, then by all means. So yeah, man, I get fired up about it, even with myself. God, when I was getting off that shit, I've talked about it on this podcast, man. I didn't go on subs or methadone, but I used a very controversial substance called kratom. I ain't telling anybody to take kratom. I ain't telling anybody not to take kratom. Matter of fact, I ain't telling anybody to take subs. I ain't telling you not to, but we can goddamn sure talk about it. And we do on this podcast, and I'm glad we do. And I have all the respect in the world for anybody that chooses to go down that road to help them stay clean. If that's not something you choose to do, I respect you for that as well. I came that fucking close to going on subs. I just chose not to. I thought, well, let me try this kratom root and see how that goes. Maybe that'll help me. And had that not worked, that was my next step, was trying subs. I also smoked pot. I had this one motherfucker. I don't even talk to the guy no more, but I remember him saying to me, well, you got your clean time under false pretenses because you were smoking weed during your withdrawals and you didn't tell anybody about it. Well, I ain't fucking say nothing about it in the rooms because I don't want to take no shit from anybody. I was trying to get clean off the fucking opiates, and thank God I fucking smoked some weed to help me get through that bullshit. So I ain't telling you to smoke weed. I ain't telling you not to smoke weed if you're going through opiate withdrawals. What I'll say is it was something that was recommended to me to help take the edge off the depression, to help me with the insomnia, to help me with my appetite, because you don't want to fucking eat when you're going through withdrawals. It was a godsend. Now, for me, it was all about intent. I wanted to get 100% clean again, which I did. But that shit helped me through, man. Oh my God. Because the opiate withdrawals, if you've been through it, worst thing I ever been through in my life. Now, some people might say, oh God, it wasn't that bad. Well, you know what? I believe that opiate withdrawal symptoms, the intensity of them, depends on how long you were using it. How much were you using on a daily basis? For this drug addict, I was hooked on that shit for 9 fucking years, and I went through them all, y'all. Started off with the Norcos or the fucking Vikes, whatever you want to call it. From there, it went to the Perks, went to the Oxys, went to Demerol, Dilaudid, and at the end, I was snorting fucking heroin, as I've talked about many times on this podcast. Next would have been the fucking needle, because people would say, Jesus Christ, bro, what are you wasting that dope snorting it? Fuck, you might as well run it, Thank God I never did. I just never wanted to fuck with needles. I never wanted to fuck with heroin. Never in a million years would I think a guy like me, Mr. Clean Cut, white shirt and tie, all-American businessman, media guy, professional corporate America guy would fucking snort heroin. But I would get so dope sick because I couldn't get the pills anymore because I was taking so goddamn many of them by that time, because you build up a tolerance. They don't fucking work the way they did in the beginning anymore, and you got to take more and more and more and more and more and more and more of them. And then when you don't have them, you get so sick you can't even get out of bed to go to work, to make more money, to get more dope, et cetera, that vicious circle I talked about. And so, man, by that time you got lots of connects, believe me, and plugs and all that other shit. And then one day they'll say, oh yeah, the good's coming in, and it don't. And then you're fucked because you don't have anything. And then they say, well, man, hey, we're hoping to get some more pills in a couple of days, but if you don't want to get sick, we got some fucking heroin. It'll hold you over, man, Yeah. I'm the only one, right? Yeah. If you're a real one, you know. And so the point I'm making, man, is there's too many fucking people dying out there. So if you got a problem with somebody using medication assisted treatment, that's your fucking problem. Leave them alone, man. Don't be talking shit, tell them they ain't clean. Like I said, I can't believe I had somebody say to me, well, you got your clean time under false pretenses. Fuck you, man. My clean date, the last time I ever put a opiate in this body was March 11th, almost 3 years ago. That's the fucking clean date I go by. Okay. And if you got a problem with that, that's on you. Do you, boo? I do me. So, yeah, man, more power to this doctor for helping this kid through medication assisted treatment. All right, let me move on because it's a topic I obviously have strong feelings about, y'all. Here's another story in the news that I thought we'd talk about. This is interesting because I mentioned all these big settlements with the pharmacies, Purdue Pharma, the Sackler family, all the rest, even all the actual pharmacies, not just the pharmaceutical companies, but the pharmacies themselves, Walgreens, CVS, all the other ones, Kroger's, all these different ones are paying out all this money. Well, check this out. The New York Attorney General, and you can see this is a recent story, sues the healthcare advertising company for its role in the opioid crisis. Now, think about that for a minute, man. These fucking pharmaceutical companies hire these, basically, it is an ad agency to market the Oxycontin. And so, yeah, man, I say, hell yeah, go after them. Why the fuck not? Because they fucking profited off of that madness too. And, they formed this coalition to sue this, what's it called? Publicis, one of the world's largest healthcare advertising companies, for creating what they call predatory and deceptive marketing strategies for Purdue Pharma. And you get the idea, man. It just blows my mind. So we'll keep an eye on that story and let you know what develops there. Here's this other story I thought we'd talk about today. This is the last one, y'all. And then we're going to bring the show to a close here fairly quick. We got a quick shout out and a couple funny memes and we'll wrap it up. But this one is a recent story too. And I follow all these different media outlets, and having grown up in the Midwest in the Detroit area, I read the Detroit News and the Detroit Free Press daily. And this story was in the Free there. It says the DEA seizes record amounts of fentanyl in 2023. Yeah, now that we're in the mid-February, they're finally getting all these, final reports for the previous year, because it takes a while to compile all these different numbers and stats and shit. So yeah, they came out with this report that they had a record amount of fentanyl seizures in 2023 involving the Michigan region, and it's up 70%. 70%, y'all. Okay. So that's the seizures. Now think about what didn't get seized, what did get through. So it goes right back to what I said, man. If you think this opioid crisis is getting better, if you think it's even staying the same, you are badly mistaken, despite all the settlements with the pharmacies and the big pharma and the ad agencies now and everything else that's going on. It's not true. It keeps getting worse. They had a record amount of seizures, up 70%. Now, I should point out that the DEA office in Detroit does not cover just the Detroit or Michigan area. If you look at the top of the article there, that first sentence on the right, it says the seized fentanyl included powder and pills. The Detroit office covers Michigan, Ohio, and northern Kentucky. So that's that region. And then it says it was not immediately clear how much of that fentanyl came from Michigan and how much was from the other states. But nonetheless, y'all, Michigan, Ohio, northern Kentucky, that little heart of the Midwest area, fentanyl seizures up over 70%. And like I said, if you think more was seized than got through, then you're living under a fucking rock. Okay. You know goddamn well as I do, more is getting through than they're seizing, unfortunately. I mean, I'm glad to see they're out there doing what they can to seize what they can. But man, I'm glad to see seizures are up 70%, but it's pretty fucking scary when you think about it. So anyhow, there's our 3 stories for tonight in the opioid crisis news, y'all. Pediatricians, thank God, are trying to help our kids through medication-assisted treatment a little bit more. The New York DA going after the pharmaceutical ad agencies that led everybody up the river with deceptive and bullshit advertising. And then we see the DEAs out there doing their job in the Midwest, at least, with a record number of fentanyl seizures, up 70% from the previous year for 2023. So, yeah, there's always lots going on in the news when it comes to the opioid crisis, y'all, and we'll continue to keep our eye on it. So anyway, moving along, we're going to do a quick shout out. We're going to shift gears now and talk about music, because that's one of the things we like to talk about on this show. That dare me name, we talk about those hashtags: drugs, addiction, recovery, enlightenment, music, and exercise. And part of the reason I like talking about music is because it has been so healing for me. Music therapy. We've talked about it in depth on this show. We've had many musical artists, musicians. Man, go back and check out that Dare Me Podcast YouTube channel. I know I talk about it a lot. Click on the videos tab. Look through all those episodes. We've had so many talented artists, producers, musicians, rappers, singers, songwriters on this show, and footage from live concerts. I mean, we've done a lot with music on this show. And it truly, truly is a big part of the healing process for a lot of those that have gotten off of dope, are living clean and staying clean. Man, music therapy is huge, huge. And so anyway, with all that said, we did an interview. If you're a regular viewer and listener to our show, you'll remember I was back in the Midwest visiting my hometown of Detroit City last summer. And we got to post up and did a live show from the Rare Hearted Music Studios in Detroit City. And we got to spend some time with this boy right here, Bang, who is one of the talented writers, songwriters, musicians, rappers, singers from that group, Rare Hearted. And that's a great picture of him. That's a clip from a video that he did for a song called Dance in the Rain. Well, I wanted to do a shout out to Bang, because guess what, man? He got recognized, and they did a nice write-up for him in a music publication overseas in the UK called The Playground. And look at the headline there. It says, "Listen to Bang's Dreamy, Dance in the Rain." And they did a really nice article. I didn't post the whole thing, but Dean, if you would, we're going to post a link to his video for Dance in the Rain in the chat room. And that way it'll be there, and it'll be there even in the recorded version of the show for anybody to go to anytime they want to. And you can go to the Rare Hearted YouTube channel as well if you're interested, and see all of their stuff. Now, we talked about how one thing that's really cool about Rare Hearted, I love, is these guys are, it's a collective, and they all do great music together as a group, the Rare Hearted group. And they also do solo stuff. And so this was a solo project that Bang did. And man, they're thank you, Dean. I see the link is now there in the chat room to the video Dance in the Rain by Bang. And man, they just, oh God, I can't say enough about how talented these guys are. And there's a long story about my friendship with Bang, and how Man, he recorded songs for me, produced songs and auto-tune songs for me that I've recorded. He's the one that really was the spark that got me into singing again, working with auto-tune, producing music on my own in my studio here. I work in Logic. And by the way, man, I did a song with my son-in-law Cameron. We made a cover of this tune California Girl for my daughter for her birthday, and I can't wait to bring it on this show. We got tune it up a little bit more, but I'm hoping maybe to have that on the show next week. We'll see. But anyway, and that's all a result of my friendship with Bang and his brother Shivang, who's been on our show before. But anyhow, without going on and on, I feel like I'm fangirling and standing over Bang again now. But y'all, I just can't say enough about how talented this young guy is. And when I say young guy, he's like in his early 20s. I don't even know if he's 21 or 22 yet or whatever. But yeah, by all means, man, go back to the Dare Me Podcast YouTube channel. Click on the videos tab. I don't remember what episode it was, but if you scroll down, it was, I think it was called Live from Detroit City or Live from the D or something like that. And we did a full blown deep dive interview with Bang and the group Rearhearted, man, live from their studios. It was a great show. We did a lot of clips of music from the group and all. So anyway, shout out my brother Bang. Hope to talk to you again soon, kiddo. All right. We're going to wrap the show up, y'all. We always like to end it on a humorous note. We're going to do a few funny memes. And we got some funny ones in there tonight, y'all. This first one, though, I thought we'd put in there. When you're a person trying to live clean or sober and, like me, still like to hang out with some people that do use socially or drink socially or whatever, sometimes I'll offer you a drink. Say, no, thanks, I don't drink. Really? Why? Because I'm a rebellious badass who prefers genuine happiness and self-esteem. Why do you drink? So, hey, no disrespect to my friends and family that like to have a few and can keep it in check and do but anyway, for those of us that live clean and sober, you know what I mean. Here's another one, y'all. I sent this to a couple of buddies of mine, Mark and Shivang. I've talked about it on this show, man. They live clean and sober and they're in recovery, but they do not like going to meetings, man. Meetings ain't for everybody. I've said it many times. NA, fucking A does not have a monopoly on how to get, live, or stay clean. It does not. Even with myself, man, I say that I have my program and I have my recovery. Now, for my program, I'm an NA guy. I go to AA meetings. I can adapt. I respect the singleness of purpose there. Same fucking 12 steps, same type of people, whatever the fuck. I go to AA meeting. I feel like I'm visiting family. I go to NA meeting. I feel right at home. That's where I know I belong, and I enjoy going, man. I have, a home group again. I have a sponsor, I enjoy going. My boys, Mark and Shebang, I know they don't mind me saying this. They fucking hate going to meetings. They just don't like it, They go, Bang maybe a little bit more than Mark, but, they'll go. But anyway, the point I'm making is I saw this meme this past week, and I had to send it to both of them, and they both replied with a LOL. This is obviously a meme from that movie, It. With the clown down in the sewer, and he says, "Hey, I got a brand new big book study meeting down here," and you see these guys fucking cementing over it. What a creative meme, man. So yeah, that's how them guys feel about going to a big book study, So hey, peace and love to you guys. I'm just razzing you, man. But anyway, so I thought that was funny. This next one is fucking hilarious. I love this, man. Oh, God. I have a niece who posts this. She posts it once a year, I guess, and says it's the funniest meme she's ever seen. And I have to agree. It's definitely one. The guy says, "Kick me out of church because I yelled, 'Fuck the devil.' I thought we hated this motherfucker." And the look on the guy's face in the meme, it's just, I think it's fucking hilarious, man. And so, yeah, we talk on this podcast about spirituality and enlightenment and how, you want to maintain peace in your life. And, God bless all the people that are very involved with church and religion and all that stuff. I would never disrespect anybody and try to respect everybody for what they're believing in. This is just a little humor, is what it is. So I love that one, man. That is funny right there to me. So, anyhow, here's another one I thought was hilarious. Try and steal my wake up bag now. And so, yeah, man, we've all, dealt with trying to open these little, cake containers. Is that what you'd call it? You buy these cakes at the grocery store or whatever, and they come in these plastic things, and you try opening one of them, man, they are noisy as fuck. I've gotten up in the middle of the night many times thinking, man, I'm gonna give me a little piece of that cake in there. And you try to be quiet, and they're so noisy. And so, again, you try to have a sense of humor about things. Obviously it's not funny, man. We're talking about people dying from fentanyl overdoses and addiction and things to that nature. But like I said, we always try to end the show with a little bit of humor and these funny memes. And so for real ones, real dope fiends, if you're even able to put one aside for a wake up, which when you get near the end of the road, man, most people can't even save one for the morning. But if you're able to, there's a good place to hide it. Okay. Here's another one, and I know most of y'all who follow me would agree with this. Sometimes the thoughts in my head get bored and go for a stroll out through my mouth, and this is never a good thing. So, yeah, man, I know I like to run my mouth. It's just part of my nature and part of who I am. I can be a good listener, too. I have learned, that being a good listener is a skill. Being an active listener is a skill. Man, I'll tell you what, I thought about this even with my own sponsor, Shay. Shout out Shay if you're watching or see this. She likes to talk as much, if not more, to me. And sometimes we'll get on the phone and I think I'm going to call and go vent with her and talk about all this. I can't get a fucking word in twice sometimes. God bless you, girl. No, I love you. And the point I'm making, man, is that I've thought about it a couple times when I'm on the phone with her. Like, okay, God's teaching me, man. I really need to practice being a better listener, an active listener, because believe me, I might be crazy, like I say, but I ain't stupid. I know I'm a fucking talker. I've been that way since I was a little kid. Yeah, I was thinking about it the other day. What am I doing with this fucking podcast? And I was thinking, wow, the way back, man, to when I was in junior fucking high school. I'm a 62-year-old grown ass man. When I was in junior high school, I was that kid that would go down to the office at the beginning of the day every day and read the announcements. Well, the football team will be meeting, for practice after school today. And, they got a game this Friday. I was just always been that way, man. So, yeah, sometimes when I start running my mouth, not always a good thing. But hopefully it was tonight with the podcast. Like I say always, y'all, we really do hope that by doing this podcast, we might be able to help even one person. And, sometimes we go on. Like, look at us. Here we are coming up a 2-hour podcast again. I know Dean must shake his head sometimes back at the studio in Orlando. Dean, I told you tonight, I thought, man, we'd get done with this one tonight in an hour. And here we go, too, again,
Yeah, I don't listen to you anymore.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm going to blame a half hour of it on that boy G, because he called in tonight, which I'm so grateful that he did. Thank you, if you're still watching or listening, Glenn, for calling in tonight. What a wonderful treat and surprise that was to have my own son, Glenn, call in and be part of our podcast tonight. He's been a guest on here a few times. We hadn't heard from him in a while, and he shared some big news with us tonight. Of course, I've known, since the get-go, but he's living in Honolulu, Hawaii now. He was raised a Florida boy and grew up in Orlando and was living in Miami the last few years on a project he was working on down there. He works in OSHA safety in the construction industry. And he was made an offer he couldn't couldn't refuse. And he's working on a big project now in Honolulu. And yeah, so as we talked about with him, I'm going to be going to visit him real soon. So, Dean, we'll have to work out all the, technical things once I'm out there to do an Aloha from Hawaii edition of the Dare Me podcast. And
Absolutely.
yeah. But anyway, so yeah, y'all, when we go long like this, I've always just kind of felt like, you know what? It's all good because if somebody comes across this podcast that's struggling with getting through an addiction and maybe is actually going through the withdrawals. I remember what it was like, y'all. You're literally climbing the fucking walls, and it goes on for days. You have insomnia. You can't sleep. Yeah, maybe you're not out for a half hour here or an hour there, but it ain't, you ain't getting no good 8 hour night sleep or nothing like that. You can't eat. You got to force it down, and then it's coming out of both ends. You got a fucking hamster running in your chest on a wheel nonstop. You got the restless leg and arm syndrome. You're going nuts. You're trying to watch TV, but you can't fucking concentrate, So you're scrolling online, TikTok, and doing whatever you can to help pass the time till that shit gets out of your system. But if you're going through that, believe me, I promise you it will. It will get out of your system. You will start to feel better after a few days and after a week. Time goes by, but it goes at a snail's pace when you're going through that shit. Hang tough, man. Like we say on this podcast, always at the end, if you're going through hell, keep fucking going. You will come out the other side. If a guy like me can do it, you can do it too. If people like others that participate in this podcast can get through it, you can too, man. Keep going. You got to go through hell to get to the other side. But what's waiting for you on the other side, man? The gifts and the good feelings. Yeah, I piss and moan on here sometimes about shit going on in my life. I have bad days, I have good days, whatever, but no bad day I have now compares to what it was like going through that hell of opiate withdrawal. So, man, once you get through it, man, you'll never want to go through that shit again. So just keep going, man. You can do it. You can do it. So, yeah, anyways, I guess that's it. We've gone full circle with the podcast tonight. That's where I was going with. I knew I was going to make a point there is, yeah, we go long sometimes, but I've thought about it and thought, you know what, though? That's okay. If somebody who's going through them withdrawals comes across our podcast or looking for information like I was, how to get through it, and come across our podcast, hopefully we've helped somebody kill a couple hours tonight by going through the withdrawals. I know we have regular viewers and listeners. I get feedback even sometimes, like I said earlier on the show, like, goddamn, Glenn, you repeat yourself every fucking weekend on the front of the show telling what the podcast's about, whatever the fuck. Yeah, well, I do that on purpose because this show ain't for everybody. Yeah, we're grateful to have regular viewers and listeners, people who ain't even caught up in addiction. You're watching and listening, hey, more power to you. We love having you. But this podcast ain't for everybody, okay? This podcast is mainly geared toward people looking for information on how to get through opiate withdrawals or any type of addiction, whatever drug you want to pick. Anybody else who comes along for the ride beyond that, hey, we're glad to have you, man. If you're a person living clean, in recovery, and working on, living and staying clean, glad to have you a part of the podcast. Thank you for coming along for the ride, man. We love the support. The point I'm making, though, again, y'all, is that if we go 2 hours, we've had fucking shows of 2.5, 3 hours. We did those marathon 6-hour sessions on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. We ain't never doing that again, but man, hey, we did it to give people something to watch or listen to on nights that can be very tempting for people to use and celebrate, if you will, And so you get where I'm going with it, y'all. Yeah, we know we go long. It's by design, it's to give somebody who may be going through it something to watch listen to that hopefully is inspirational to them to get clean and then start living clean and staying clean. So if that might be you, peace, God bless. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, y'all, a few more episodes till we reach that goal that we set of 1 full year of Dare Me podcast, 52 episodes. Blows my mind. And coincidentally, as I mentioned earlier in the show, I swear to God, y'all, we did not plan it this way. It just happened to work out that when we started the show, I had hit exactly 2 years clean. And we're going to wrap up this whole year of live episodes on my 3 year clean anniversary. And if it works out the way I'm thinking now, after having G as a guest on the podcast tonight, what a great way to go out would be to do it live from Honolulu, Hawaii, and do an aloha edition of the Dare Me podcast when we put this full 1 year of live shows to rest. And then, like I said, y'all, gonna take a little hiatus. Had some meetings with Dean, with an advisor and coach. I'm gonna be working with here now. And then we're gonna bring back the Dare Me 2.0 version of the podcast. They'll all be recorded versions that will record ahead of time. We'll continue to air them at our regular time, 6 p.m. on the Pacific coast in the U.S., 9 p.m. on the East Coast, but they'll be pre-recorded. And then I just went into the long thing about how long the show has been. We're going to work on changing that too and try to keep them to an hour because, even though I said we like to give people something to look and listen to if they're going through withdrawals that they can watch for 2, 3 or more hours. We also know that most people don't listen to or tune into a podcast for that fucking long. I don't. And I watch and listen to a lot of different podcasts. And even with the ones I do, maybe I don't watch or listen to it all at once. Maybe it's an hour long, 45-minute, hour and a half long podcast. I might catch a half hour on the way to where I'm going, catch 20 minutes on the way back, another half hour later, whatever. I don't always catch the whole thing all at once. I might catch it in bits and pieces. But we're just going to try to be a little bit more focused, definitely narrow it in a little bit, and also it'll be a little bit less work for me and for Dean, because this thing has been a lot of work this past year, y'all, doing these long versions of the show. So anyway, just thought I'd do a little recap of that. I know we talked about it earlier, but as I just said, maybe somebody wasn't tuned in on the front end of the show when we did talk about it, so I thought we'd talk about it briefly once again. So more to come, y'all. 3 more episodes. Next week should be a good one. I'm going to try to do some good prep for next week's show because that will be a special edition of the show, y'all. Episode 50. Wow. The golden episode. That'll be a fun one. So I'll do some prep. I didn't do a lot of prep tonight. Like I said, we kind of put this show together in about an hour or so. But all in all, I thought it came out pretty good, and especially with that boy G calling, and it turned out to be a pretty good show. So with all that said, Dean, I'm coming to you live from Sacramento, California. Dean is live on the East Coast from Orlando, Florida. Anything you want to add before we wrap it up tonight, Dean?
I think it was a good show, and I'm looking forward to the next 3.
Yeah, yeah, I know you are. I'm sorry. I couldn't help but laugh. God bless you, Dean, man. I mean it, bro. You truly are a rock star. I know I can be a lot to take and a lot to unpack, and I appreciate everything you have done up to this point with the podcast. Just real quick before we wrap up, man, I'm just going to ask, Dean, because I have been wondering. We've talked about it on this show a few times. How are you doing with your recuperation with your leg? Because you had a little mishap about a month or two ago with the motorcycle and you broke your leg. And we talked about it in great length on the podcast. So I'm just curious, how's it going?
Well, I might have maybe a couple more physical therapy sessions and then I'm done.
Good.
I just rejoined the gym. I'm going to Planet Fitness again. So I've been jogging.
Oh, wow. You really have come back if you're out jogging.
I'm jogging on the treadmill, and
Okay.
my range isn't great, but I'm fixing that. So,
Well, let me ask you this, Dean, because I also follow you on social media, and you have the channel you do where you're out on the motorcycle, and I noticed you did a couple of reels promoting Bike Week, which
yep,
doesn't it start like this week?
starts in 2 weeks.
Oh, 2
Yes.
weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. And now, have you been out riding again yet, or were
Oh
those
yeah.
old?
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
I'm riding. Yeah, if I can jog, I can ride, and
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
I can
I hear.
drive, I can ride. And my physical therapist might not agree with me completely on that, but I gotta say it's more mental health than anything. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, no, I'm riding. Yeah.
Wow. Well, hey, man. When you go over to Bike Week, I hope maybe you can get a little bit of footage, and maybe we'll show some clips on the show. For our viewers and listeners that have never been to Bike Week or a big bike event like that. It's just unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
It's really a cool thing to do, even if you're not a motorcycle enthusiast. It's so fun and so cool to just go over and watch and check out all the bikes and stuff. It's a big party. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, hey, on that note, Dean, I can't thank you enough for, working so hard. I know it was a long day for you, like we mentioned earlier. Dean has the PFX Media podcast studios there in West Orange County. And I meant to say that earlier when we were talking about it on the front end of the show. If any of our viewers or listeners, somebody comes across a recorded version of the show, if you've ever thought about doing a podcast, your own podcast, for whatever topic it might be, you can contact Dean anytime at the number we've shown on the screen. Dean's contact information in the chat room, PFX Media. Look it up online and contact Dean. Talk to him about it, man. And God, I think it'd be awesome. So, Dean,
Sure.
looking forward to continuing to work with you, man. Thanks again for everything tonight. And with all that said, like I just mentioned, next week, y'all, will be episode 50 of the Dare Me podcast. It's going to be a fun one. We hope you can join us. Have yourself a safe week. Be careful out there, and we'll see you next time on the Dare Me podcast. So long.
Good night.